City Skylines, a game with a ton of content that's only made better by the wonderful mod and asset creators on the Steam Workshop. But if you have an experience like me, after you've spent hours and hours making new mod and asset collections for your new city and starting it, a new DLC comes out, and then all of your mods break, and you're greeted with tons of errors when opening your save game. So in order to avoid this inevitable fate this time around, I decided to do what all of the cool city builders are doing these days by challenging myself to build a city that won't break with every update. I gave myself 12 hours, a few quality of life mods that can easily be removed, like Move It and Prop Line Tool, and then I began an experiment to see if I too have what it takes to actually build a decent, complete city without the need for a ton of mods and assets. So this is the story of Hawthorne. So Hawthorne began the same way as any other city begins, in a new map from the Steam Workshop. I chose this map because it looks really good, it's vanilla, and most of the buildable area is accessible within 9 tiles, so I don't need 81 tiles mod or anything like that. And so I started off this city in an interesting way. I played with money on because I like the extra challenge, but I decided to unlock everything from the start so that I'm not, hindered by the time it takes to reach the progression milestones. Plus I can actually place down, whatever I want and have a little more creative freedom, but still unlimited by money, of course. So I started off by zoning some high density where I wanted the downtown to be, and I ended up just clicking on a random building, and it was called the Hawthorne Residence, and I said, I like that name, so that's going to be the name of the city. So thus Hawthorne was born, and the city expanded out pretty quickly. I added out a lot of roads, a lot of city services, and for some reason there was a constant demand for industry. So no matter how much industry I put down, it never seemed to go away. Finally though, I did get a chance to expand the residential areas by making some suburbs and expanding out the highways, and then even spent a little bit of time detailing up some of these areas by adding in some trees and just other little parks and little special places to make the city come alive. I finally expanded the downtown as well, and then even made it out to this little town in the outskirts of the city where I started to place down some farming industry and an additional rail cargo station to bring some of these goods into the other industrial areas of the city, or even export them to make some more money. Shortly after this, about halfway through the build, I experienced my first death wave that I've ever experienced in City Skylines. I've never quite made a city big enough to have a death wave before, so this was a shock to me when I looked, and then all of my downtown was basically dead. So I needed to act and create some more infrastructure by adding in some cemeteries and crematoriums, and then soon the death wave was resolved and I was able to resume building. After this, I decided to create a university and a pedestrian area, and then even a stadium and a huge waterfront park to really attract some visitors to the city and increase tourism. But with all these massive areas that draw a lot of people, there's definitely a need for public transport, of which I had absolutely zero. So I decided to start with the tram network to kind of create a nice area around the downtown, a nice path from the central station to the stadium and around the downtown to bring people where they need to go. This quickly became pretty busy, and I realized that I needed some other means of transport, which I will get to later. But before that, I decided to go back and upgrade some of the roads. There were tons of just regular concrete medians and regular streets in Hawthorne, and I decided it would look way nicer if I actually gave some of these trees. So I made some tree-lined roads and changed some of these large avenues to have the trees in the middle, or even just have a grass median as opposed to a concrete median. Not only does this help we reduce noise pollution, but it also boosts the land value and happiness of the citizens in these areas. So when you have the money to do this, I always highly recommend doing so. And finally, going to the last couple hours of the build, the city was pretty much starting to take shape, and it was time to revisit the downtown and kind of clean up some of these uglier areas. So I looked to the Skyscraper Creator Content Pack newly released on the City Skyline store page, and used some of these skyscrapers to really enhance the skyline of the city. And while these might not be the best fit for the city at the moment, I figured I would at least place down some since I didn't have a lot of time, and just kind of come back to it later, maybe after I was finished with the initial build. But I gotta say, having this type of content in the vanilla game now is extremely awesome. And we've never been able to actually have a really, really nice skyline before without downloading custom mods and assets. But now if you just buy this content creator DLC, it's only a couple bucks, and it offers a huge upgrade for any city, especially if you're trying to play vanilla. So finally, I added in some ore mining facilities to give us another specialized industry, and then even added in a bus network finally, so that people can have another form of public transit. And with the last hour of the build, it was time to kind of revisit what I had done and clean up some of these areas that really needed a little extra love, adding in some more details, some more pathways, removing some power lines that were just randomly going in between buildings, and then finally adding a metro line as our final form of public transit in the city. So with that all being said, it was time to go and look back at the monstrosity that I've created to see if it can actually pass for a city. So without further ado, welcome to the city of Hawthorne. While the city of Hawthorne has a relatively small footprint, it's a bustling city with all of the amenities that a city needs. You'll find a towering, unique skyline on the waterfront, a university in the hills, metro and tram lines to get people around, and enough factories and traffic to make environmentalists want to imprison me for life. But you know what? I was actually surprised by what I was able to achieve with mostly the vanilla game and a couple of essential mods. And with that being said, I think it's time to visit Hawthorne and just see everything that the city has to offer. All right, guys, so here it is, the city of Hawthorne in all of its glory. And yeah, like I said, it's not super big. This buildable area is actually pretty small compared to what, some of the size of the cities that you can build, in certain maps. But yeah, actually, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I've never actually built a somewhat mostly complete city in City Skylines before, so this was kind of a first for me. Really kind of having a decent downtown, and I like how the zoning density gets a little bit, the building heights get a little bit lower as you expand out kind of towards the suburbs. I think that's something that some people struggle with, and I was happy that I'm actually really happy with the way it looks. So yeah, I mean this waterfront park is super huge, but I think it's really nice. I like the sports complex. I like the university. I mean, yeah, I'm just really happy with it. And for being mostly vanilla, I mean, by mostly vanilla, I mean all vanilla assets and a few mods. Like I used Move It, I used Prop Line Tool, Road Anarchy, just some mods that make just the overall design a little bit easier and kind of save some time rather than plopping down like every tree. I could just drag out Prop Line Tool and make a nice symmetrical, even looking like very straight lines and everything. So yeah, that's just mods. And the nice thing about those mods too is that they don't usually break with updates. They usually you're able to use them after new updates release, whereas like mods like Building Themes mod, or I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but any mod that affects gameplay typically needs the update. But none of these mods actually affect gameplay. They're purely just for more for aesthetics and just kind of building and design. So yeah, same thing with like service vehicle selector or anything that involves public transport. A lot of those need to be updated when new updates come out, but I'm not using any of those, and I'm actually pretty happy with everything. I have a nice public transit network. Let's just actually, so yeah, I kind of want to just give you a little bit of a tour of some of the main areas, the things that I kind of did. So yeah, let's start by actually looking at our public transit network. So we have, first of all, some train lines. Not too many passenger lines. It's mostly cargo. So we have a cargo line, cargo coming from here and goes down to these industrial areas, and then also this industrial area, the harbor here. So that is one spot. And then in terms of passenger lines, we actually only have a couple stations. We have a university station, one out here in the farm suburb, and then another one out here kind of in this west suburb. So those are the only train line, the passenger lines that I have. I typically don't rely on trains as a form of public transit within the city. I like to, think of trains as more of an inner city form of public transport, especially after being in Europe for a while. That's kind of what they're for. They're more for inner city and kind of cross country public transit rather than, within one city. So that's where things like trams and bus lines and even a metro come in. So as you can see, I have a metro line that comes from the central station all the way to the sports stadium. And it kind of reminds me of my time in Sevilla when there was only one metro line. So, I didn't feel the need, at least with the limited time that I had in designing the city, I didn't feel the need to have multiple metro lines since, again, the downtown is actually pretty small in terms of, city blocks and everything. I mean, look at these roads. There's only maybe 10 blocks or so. I mean, there's 6 blocks right here and then a couple, maybe 8 blocks. And then you're already kind of in the suburbs. So it's really not a downtown worthy of having, a bunch of different metro lines. So that one will definitely be sufficient for now. And it's getting some use, so that's good. But yeah, I was actually really kind of happy to be able to use the tram networks. I don't use trams often, but in this scenario, I thought it would be kind of interesting to, have a few different tram lines. Just kind of one that goes around the downtown, one that goes to the stadium, one that kind of goes around the coast here. So yeah, there's a few different tram lines, and I tried to make the stops in a way where you can easily transfer from one line to the next. And so hopefully that's running pretty well. I think there might be a little too many vehicles on these tram lines, but I'll go back and revisit that later. I figured that's something that I can fix. And lastly, the bus network. So right here we have the inner city station. So there are some buses that come in here from off the map. I think what I might do though is I forgot to add, currently all of the lines are just within this area here, as you can see by this public transit map, even though it's kind of hard to see with the metro lines and everything. But yeah, a lot of the bus lines are mainly just around these areas, and there's one that goes out to the university, and then one that goes out to this is actually the cruise ship port. So it's sort of like a shuttle to get people into the city from the cruise lines. But other than that, there's no bus routes going out to this city over here or to the little farmland up here. So I'm thinking maybe I should add a couple of lines just as some, kind of inner city lines to get people from here to here and here as well. So that's something that I'll look at in the future. And I already have a list of things that I want to improve and fix. One of them being this industrial area. It started off all right, but now it looks kind of, I don't know. I think it'll be nice if we get some more unique factories. Maybe we can replace some of these buildings with them, because once these buildings level up, they all start to look the same. So as you can see, all of these are, the same building basically. So it's not always the most fun, but yeah, same thing here. This industrial area could use a little bit of improvement. And I was just trying to cram industry into this map because the demand was always so high, but now it's kind of leveled off. So I think we're in a much better spot. But yeah, like I said, I'm pretty happy with everything. I have 3 out of the 4 specialized industries. We have our iron up here. We have our, this is right next to our city services as well, our waste processing and, water treatment and power and everything. I just kind of threw it all up in this area. And then we have our farmland here. I was going to expand it, up here if needed, or over this way now that we have this tile. And then we have our oil down here. So this is really cool. Not the biggest oil industry, but definitely enough to provide some extra income for the city. And so the only thing that we need is forestry. And I purchased this tile here, so I figured, this can be our little forestry town. Eventually, we'll build that up. But yeah, the last thing that I want to talk about for now is the traffic situation. So I'm actually really looking forward to jumping in and managing some of the trouble spots. So right now our traffic is not great. 61% is absolutely awful. Just look at all of the red on this map. I mean, this is just terrible. Oh my goodness, this is actually worse than I thought. I thought it was like better than this. But yeah, we're definitely going to need to do some work on the traffic flow in Hawthorne and the surrounding cities. And I'm actually really excited to do that, because typically whenever I am playing City Skylines, you know, for example, in Percussion and other cities that I've built in the past, you know, I spend a little bit more time. I like, you know, to play with mods and assets, so I spend a little bit more time just in the detail work and not any time on the actual gameplay and, you know, overall efficiency and functionality. And I think the management aspect of these games is actually really, really fun. And so having a city kind of already built, and then looking back on what I built and kind of, you know, the problems that I created for myself, essentially, right? Like, there's really nobody else was the fault of this monstrosity here. Like, oh my goodness, what, this intersection is terrible. I just, gosh. Okay, anyway. But yeah, so I'm excited to kind of go back through these areas and use, you know, maybe traffic precedent mod if it's updated, and actually fix up some of these, and, you know, add some different roundabouts or some different intersection configurations to try to get everything to work a little bit better. So yeah, with that being said, thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. I am very excited to have a city that I could actually play in the, you know, month or whatever that it takes for all of the mods to get upgraded or updated, not upgraded, maybe upgraded, but updated. And, you know, hopefully this will be a kind of another, you know, little mini series. Like, we'll have an episode here and there for this city where I can build some things. And before I go, I also thought about, you know, the city doesn't have an airport yet, and so I was thinking about some ideas for an airport. And since I looked at the map that we have and I said there's actually nowhere to put it, I've built over literally every single possible place. I was thinking of going something along the lines of building it in an artificial island on the water. And I actually looked up on Google Earth, you know, some of the different airports that are built on artificial islands, and I was actually really, really surprised at some of the main, some big cities have airports that were built on artificial land just outside of the city. So we have all this water, and I was, you know, wondering maybe like somewhere over here might be a good area to build that. So yeah, in future episodes you can expect to see an airport. You can expect to see some additional expansion, forestry industry, and yeah, a little bit of, you know, maybe light detail work, and definitely revisiting the traffic and public transit networks. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of that, and I hope that you guys are too. So thank you again for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week and enjoy the new content coming out in City Skylines. Peace out, and I will talk to you guys later.